Welcome back to another episode of the Gate Guys podcast. Dr. Shawn Allen here. And for some of you, this is going to be your first exposure to me and this podcast. I'm doing this one solo away from my partner in the Gate Guys. That's the Gate, GAITGUYS.com, thegateguys.com, which is my business with the neurologist Ivo Werlop out in Dillon, Colorado, and we've done about 120 podcasts over the years. I've been podcasting for a better part of 5 years now, maybe 4 or 5 years, about 120 in total, which is not a lot, but we tend to pace ourselves, and we've outlasted a lot of folks, and we continue to have good content. We're heard in over 90 countries right now, and this podcast will certainly reach the majority of those folks, and a large reach here in the United States, but certainly abroad. So we're excited about that because I think this is a very important podcast that kind of is a slight tangent away from gait, but certainly not from the other stuff that I do, which is movement. And I've got a very interesting gentleman on the podcast here today, a friend of mine. A gentleman has become very close to me over the last 4 years, and I've learned a lot from him. And it's good to have your mentors in the world. And this gentleman on several levels has become not only a good friend, but a mentor in teaching me the finer intricacies of a very, very complex art, a very complex base of movements, and certainly a mental strategy. And so I was excited to have him on the podcast for several reasons, and we'll discuss those in just a moment. But, I was going to put this out as the first podcast for ShawnAllen.net, which is my private website that I kind of, not private, it's separate from the Gate Guys, where I write about life and jiu-jitsu and medicine and put up videos and stuff like that. And but I thought, well, this is just too closely related to movement. And a lot of our listeners I know are not purely gait related, certainly not purely orthopedic and neurologic related, but they're looking to study movement on a more global basis. So I thought, it really would be a mistake not to put this under the Gate Guys here, but I'll certainly put it on my personal site so you guys can find it, but it'll be on iTunes and everywhere else if you want to download it, and certainly if you want to share it with some friends. But some very important things before we get on here. And if you're not new to the podcasts, before Ivan and I always come on, I kind of give a little, thought of the day and thought of what we're going to be talking about and whatnot. And for those of you who know me, and for those of you who don't, you know that I'm kind of on a bit of a journey here, turning 50 in just a few months here in 2017, and been on a mission at least for the last 10 or 15 years and trying to fill in the gaps of my life and the things that I'm curious about and things that I certainly don't have answers to, but certainly desperately want to fill those gaps. And so I've been on a bit of a journey. And, early on in my jiu-jitsu journey, I had a talk with Professor Carlos Lemos, who's the guest here today. And, I walked into the school or the academy one day, and it was just him in there, and I was early, and he had on some of the classic Brazilian music that they enjoy. Bossa Nova was playing, and it's kind of a smooth, jazzy, very earthy, really beautiful music. And I remember listening to the beat, and I'd been studying dance for about 3 years, just trying to understand the intricacies of dance. I'd been a physician for the Joffrey Ballet here in Chicago, which is one of the best in the world, and so I'd been very much around professional ballet dancers, and I realized that their bodies were certainly beautiful and unique and flexible and yet powerful and strong, and I thought, well, I need to look into this a little bit more, because some professional dancers from the ballroom genre had been coming in to see me, and from Latin to smooth and American and international type dances, and I realized that I didn't understand their art, and I do this with different sports too. I mean, the first time a guy came in and told me that he had cased his bike, I had no idea what he was talking about, so I had to look that up and understand why he had chest injuries. So I realized I needed to understand the language of dance a little bit more in order to understand what they do and their injuries and what was going on. And so what started out as just a discovery turned into a 3-year journey into probably one of the hardest things that I've ever done, which was studying dance, from waltz and foxtrot to cha-cha, rumba, merengue, salsas, rumbas, tangos and stuff like that. And I realized how intricate footwork was. But the dialogue that I had with Carlos was how important communication was. And he said, look, Shawn, and he said it before I even said it, and this was after a couple classes, and he said, there's not a lot of difference between dance and jiu-jitsu on a conceptual level, because it is a silent communication of two people interlocked or engaged, moving together to perform a goal. Now, jiu-jitsu, there's a competitive goal. One person is obviously on offense, the other's on defense, and you're both trying to submit the other to end the struggle. Certainly that doesn't happen in dance. One might argue that it happens in relationships, but maybe not in dance, since that's not the goal. But in dance, there is music, and there is rhythm, and there is timing, and there is silent communication, and there is always a touch factor where you're linked to your partner. Correlation, you're linked to your opponent in jiu-jitsu. And so there is a movement, and knowing more and more about the dance, you understand the intricacies of the movements, and you can communicate those things better. But also correlating to jiu-jitsu, the more you understand the language of jiu-jitsu, which is very complex, and understand that there are multiple positions, both offensively and defensively. There are multiple levels of knowledge and understanding. The higher you go, the greater your language gets, the greater your understanding and command of the language gets. And so you understand what a subtle movement might mean, or in correlation with the language, you have a better command of the vocabulary. And you can use fewer words to convey a more complex thought. And jiu-jitsu is very much the same. And for anybody who's been a white belt or blue belt and has rolled with a purple, brown, or black belt, you'll understand that their economy of movement is much more efficient. There is less of this struggle. There is more finesse. There's more flow. There's more calculating. And you can tell. And a good jiu-jitsu practitioner should be able to do this. And even if you're a white or blue belt, if you've rolled with a couple of these higher level folks, you'll know this, that you can tell that they're working on a completely different level of this language of jiu-jitsu. You see them abandon things very quickly and move on to something else. They see another opportunity, but you can tell that they're several steps ahead. It's almost like they're doing grad work while you're in grade school. And so the beautiful part about this is that you can stop during sparring or a lesson, and you can have a dialogue with them. And sometimes it comes after you've tapped, but ask them about that language so you can learn from it. And it's one of the beautiful things about this art is that there is this open family, brotherhood, sisterhood thing where people are just trying to elevate everybody. And at least that happens in our school. I understand it doesn't happen in all schools, but our school seems to be more, just more family oriented in that we're trying to elevate everybody. It's something that I love about this school, but kind of getting a little off topic here, but you'll see some of this dialogue come up in our podcast here with Professor Lemos today. And it certainly opened up a lot of things that allowed for us part 2 and a part 3, because we kind of just touched the tip of the iceberg here. But, this all started for me when I started into judo as a young child, and only a few classes in with my brother, it was terminated for some reason. And I think it was just timing and, having a one-car family and two parents who were trying to juggle a whole bunch of things. But it always kind of left a little bit of an empty hole. And I realized that at some point in my life as I got older, that was a hole that I kept coming back to and wanted to fill at some point. So the day that the sign went up about 4 years ago in front of Gracie Barra Downers Grove here in Illinois, Downers Grove, Illinois, I realized that my journey into the grocery store needed to be diverted into this place where I met Professor Lemos and our relationship started. And for those of you who, hang on a little bit here, because there are some concepts here that people don't understand, and this really comes down to the concepts of understanding and knowledge. And I say this a lot to my patients, and certainly in my other podcasts, that the less you know about something, the more likelihood you're going to be speaking from a base of ignorance and poor judgment, if you will, and perhaps even dismissal. And the folks that kind of live by that mantra, which is certainly not a healthy way to go, are those who are going to be, living off of insufficient knowledge and wisdom, and certainly going to be more quick to create judgment on things and dismiss them. And certainly those are the folks you do not want in your life who are either teaching you or preaching to you. You want someone who's got some knowledge. So I always say beware of gurus, especially beware of false knowledge. This is a quote I just came across. It's more dangerous. Beware of gurus, beware of false knowledge. It's more dangerous than ignorance. And a good guru should be a bridge, not a crutch. I think that was George Bernard Shaw, if I recall correctly, but my computer's not open at the moment. I've got all these little things I scribble down. They're sitting here around my desk. But Professor Lemos is the real deal. He's been teaching around the world, as you will learn. He's opened up schools around the world, and he's been doing this the larger part of his life. And he has certainly become a great teacher. Great teachers tell good stories with good lessons in them. And one of the things that I learned the most about jiu-jitsu from the early part of it was that I had become unacquainted and had lost my familiarity with the ground. What do I mean by that? Well, as children, we do tumbling classes and we do rolling classes and we play on the ground, and the ground is an easy place to get to. We're very familiar with it, and we get up and we get down. But as adults, we lose this. We start to lose our fitness. We don't squat real well. We bend over improperly. Look at children bending over. It's a perfect squat the majority of the time, and they seem to get down to the ground both through falling and through conscious means very easily and get up off the ground. And early on in jiu-jitsu, I learned that I needed to learn how to tumble again and learn how to roll and get familiar with the ground, because that's much of this martial art is a defensive thing, and taking your aggressor to the ground and learning how to neutralize them, and then from there working on a place of either negotiation or interrogation, if you will, meaning end the dispute in a safe manner and move on and in a safe way to protect you and your family. And so, we talk about these things in the podcast. I think I've been long-winded here enough. But one last thing, we've lost our ability as humans because we sit on our largest muscle group, the glute muscles, the majority of the day. We don't exercise enough. We're not getting enough movement. It's something that I talk about a lot on the podcast about movement. Movement is medicine. If you're not moving well and moving often, you are in trouble. It's a dialogue I've had with my parents who are in their 80s now. They're not on a lick of medicine, and they go out and they do their walks every single day. It's a brisk walk. It's not a stroll. And they move. And we go through squats, chair squats and stuff like that, and they stay moving and they stay limber. And I think that if you do this earlier on in life, you're not going to have the struggles later on in life. And walking is probably the second most frequent thing that we do in terms of motor patterns. Breathing is perhaps the first and most important and subconscious, but walking is a more conscious effort, although we do take it for granted until we fall. And it requires an integration of these lower extremity motor neuron pools. A little bit of neurology there for you, but we tend to get away from the upper limb motor neuron pool activity. We used to have more of it when we were climbing more, and we got away from that when we stopped being children. Engagement of the upper limbs engages that upper motor neuron pool. If you look at the neurology from a functional level of a climber, so, a rock climber or a tree climber, you're going to see someone who has a significantly different anatomy and certainly a different development of the upper torso and upper limbs. They're going to be significantly more developed and look quite a bit healthier, but they've learned to integrate the upper and lower limb motor neuron pools, and arguably they're probably much healthier from a neurologic standpoint. Jiu-Jitsu does much the same. You need to learn how to use your arms in weight-bearing and tripod positions and quadruped positions and even handstand type positions during certain passes. So this is a high-level skill on many more levels than you probably appreciate or understand if you're not into the martial arts. And this is a beautiful martial art. If you've never seen a Jiu-Jitsu match, go over to the internet, go on YouTube, Vimeo, or whatever, and type in Jiu-Jitsu match. Or the ADCC matches or whatever, and you will see some very, very complex, intricate movements that are very quick at times, very slow at other times. There's a lot of strategy. Sometimes this art is referred to as human chess. It's because it is so complex, and at the competition levels, people are multiple stages ahead in both offense and defense while they're interfacing their opponent. So it's a very interesting sport, and when it's over, it's usually over very quickly, but don't dismiss the fact that there was a build up to that point where the strategy was actually mounting. So it's a very interesting thing. I hope that you guys enjoy this podcast. I could talk forever here. I'll save some more of my thoughts for the next intro to the next podcast, but hopefully this kind of gave you an intro into how complex things are and maybe a little bit of background to who I am and why I wanted to interview Professor Carlos Lemos here. And we had a good time. We talked for about an hour and a half, so this is not going to be a short podcast, but I hope that you enjoy it. I hope you share it with your friends. So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get on with the podcast. I introduced to you the professor at Gracie Barra Downers Grove. That's gbdownersgrove.com. We'll mention all that at the end of the podcast. Professor Carlos Lemos here at Downers Grove, Illinois. Professor Carlos, welcome. I am glad. We've been talking about doing this podcast for a long time. So, some exciting news, right? New school opening up. Yes. Yeah. When's that due to come open?
First weekend of April. We're planning, everything works according to plan. We should have like a Gracie Barra Downers Grove 2.0 reloaded school. We're doubling our mat area, and the school gonna look awesome. I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, so am I. The mats are getting a little crowded, so this is it's certainly well overdue. I think the school's exploding, so this is good news. And the nice part is it's just around the corner, so no one's going to have any excuses not to find us. So a lot of people that are listening, even though this is kind of podcast number 1, but this is podcast 121 with the Gate guys. Mm-hmm. A lot of people probably don't know a lot about Jiu-Jitsu, and particularly the Brazilian version of it, and it's got quite a decorated history. And why don't you share a little bit about this with the listeners, and get them a little bit more acquainted with this?
Yeah, for a lot of people, since Jiu-Jitsu is such up and coming, fast growing martial arts / sport, there is a lot of curiosity out there about what Jiu-Jitsu really is. And Jiu-Jitsu, it's a martial art that originally started in India with monks that made vows of non-violence. During their peregrinations, they carry goods, they carry money on their travels, and they started to get assaulted and robbed, beaten and killed. So this was over 2,500 years ago. By observing the animals, they developed a system of self-defense to withstand against these robbers, these attackers, with a non-violent approach. So with Buddhism, Jiu-Jitsu traveled from India to across Asia, and he found in Japan the perfect thriving ground, because Japan was going through, for about 1,000 years, Japan went through several civil wars in the warring area of Japan, the warring states of Japan, and the monks that taught the religion to the warrior class, they also taught Jiu-Jitsu to them, and the Jiu-Jitsu became the way of life of the medieval knight of Japan, which is the samurai warrior.
So that's how it started, as a defensive, because it was from the monks. That's why it wasn't an offensive technique. I didn't know that.
Yes. That's why jiu-jitsu to this day it carries out this very stamp of a non-violent form of martial art.
That's interesting. I didn't know that. Having done this for just a few years and hearing all the stories that you tell and all of the other professors that come in, I didn't realize that it had originated that far back and from the monks. That's pretty interesting. So, I mean, how did it progress after that then? I mean, obviously it found its way out of Japan, right?
Yeah. So then, each clan or each family in Japan, warrior family, they had their own style of jiu-jitsu. Some emphasized more on the throwing aspect, some are more on the ground fighting aspect, some or counter strikes, counter weapons, some more in locks, some more in chokes. And with the modernization of the Japanese society and the elimination of the caste system, all these masters, they're employed by these local warlords. They became either doctors like yourself, experts in the body, because they have so much knowledge about the body, awareness, or they became martial arts instructors. Eventually, the art started to die because there was no more need to learn jiu-jitsu. The young Japanese men found more appeal in becoming educated in academic sciences. So one of these masters, he started to travel across Japan collecting scrolls from all these families because he saw that as a dying style and unified that all under the same roof. Eventually, one of his students left Japan to test his style across the planet against the best fighters in the world. And he traveled from Japan to Russia, from Russia to Eastern Europe to Europe. And arriving in Spain, he fought the best in the country there, and he put their best fighters to sleep. He choked them, which is not choked. He didn't kill them. He choked them unconscious. And after the fight, because you're a practitioner, you come back. I mean, if you don't submit. And that's the other interesting thing about jiu-jitsu. You don't get knocked out in jiu-jitsu. You always have the chance to ask to stop. And the match is interrupted immediately as soon as you tap on your partner, which is a merciful way to defend yourself. And that goes back to the monk's story that I shared with you. But then because he was putting the best fighters over there to sleep, his name was Mitsui Maeda, but he was nicknamed Count Koma. That was his fighting name.
What was it?
Koma. Putting people on
coma.
coma.
Yeah, okay.
Count Koma. So he traveled from there. He kept traveling across Europe, and then he did a presentation in the White House over here. You guys had the chance to discover jiu-jitsu. I mean, the North Americans had the chance to discover jiu-jitsu about 100 years ago. But eventually he went to northern Brazil, in the Amazon jungle. And over there he became a Japanese emissary for the Japanese emperor, who was expanding its frontiers across the world. Japan was in full expansion, and they're trying to colonize the Amazon jungle and other arable lands in Brazil. Our government was offering free land for anyone with knowledge in farming and agriculture, trying to develop the economy. The Japanese found a good opportunity on that because to this day, they have a tremendous problem, a territorial problem, too much people for a small country. And it was having a lot of difficulties with the language and with the culture. So he was befriended by a local, very influential man, was a Scott descent. Mr. Gaston Gracie was the grandfather of my teacher. And Mr. Gaston Gracie had 2 kids. One was a house kid, very quiet, frail, small, shy. And one was a hyper kid, a troublemaker, a kid that everyone in the neighborhood knew how much of a hyper kid he was. And in exchange for all the help and an affection this Scottish immigrant showed him, he decided to teach this guy's kids. And the kids that took that more seriously were Carlos and Helio Gracie. And after the Japanese man passed, these 2 kids, they decided that they want to take jiu-jitsu to the world. And the world back in the day was Rio de Janeiro, was the capital of our country. They understood to launch a jiu-jitsu expansion where everyone one day would learn that style, because they're so profoundly affected by that they want to share that with other people, with their best friends and relatives. So the Amazon jungle became small for them. And they moved to Rio de Janeiro and they found the first Gracie school in 1920s. And they originally started teaching their own kids and their own close friends. But back in the day, no one knew what jiu-jitsu was. So they launched challenges on the newspapers. And they're not big guys. They're like 5'3".
Oh, they were that
5'4".
I didn't realize they were that small.
Yeah, they're small and skinny, 135 pounds.
Wow.
Helio eventually become a little stronger than Carlos, a little bigger, but they're not big guys at all. And they started to gain so much notoriety in Brazil that the celebrities and the important figures, the presidents, the generals, ministers of Brazil, the senators, they all became Gracie students. But not until some of the Gracies moved to America and one of them invented the UFC, that's when the world became aware of jiu-jitsu. It was in 1993 when Royce Gracie was still like a young fellow, much skinnier, smaller than all the gigantic, ginormous fighters that he fought against. In one night he shocked the world and made these guys all submit to the jiu-jitsu he knew. So at that time, about that time I was starting my jiu-jitsu journey in Brazil, in the very heart of Gracie Barra, in the town of Barra, where I actually grew up. I moved to Barra when I was 5 years old, and I spent my whole life there. And I was fortunate enough to train in one of the Gracie Barra schools with some of the best guys, the best black belts that my teacher ever formed, Master Carlos. And eventually, when they start moving away, my teacher Roberto Correia moved to São Paulo. My other teacher Alexandre Soca moved away too. Half Gracie, I had the opportunity to maybe get a couple classes with him right before he left to San Francisco, and Renzo Gracie finally left to New York. So then I moved to the main Gracie Barra school, the headquarters. And that's all my story.
In Brazil?
This all in Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in this town called Barra. That's why the school is called Gracie Barra. Actually, a lot of people think Barra is a person, but no. Barra is a town. And because it's another very interesting story about Gracie Barra, that my teacher, Master Carlos Gracie Jr., his students wanted him to call that the Carlos Gracie Jr. Jiu-Jitsu Club. But other Gracies, they're important figures for that school, which was information. Crolin Gracie and Helium Gracie, they're younger brothers of my teacher. And as well as the Machado brothers, who were his cousins. They're all, and he wanted all of them to have the same recognition, the same appreciation that he has. He was always a selfless man, never. It wasn't an egocentric in any shape or form. You see that in a lot of martial artists, a little bit of narcissism. Mm-hmm. He wasn't like that. There was no privileges, or no one was better than anyone. There was a sense of like equality and respect among all the members. So he say, this is going to be called the Gracie School of Barra. So that's why the school is called to this day Gracie Barra. And today Gracie Barra is the biggest jiu-jitsu organization in the world. And I would adventure myself to say it's the biggest martial arts organization in the world, with over 650 schools across the planet.
650.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's growing.
So when did you? Now I understand, and the listeners will be interested that you did a lot of traveling and opening up schools around the world, right? I mean, you were kind of an ambassador. Yeah, an ambassador. To the system. Where were your travels taking you at that point?
This is another interesting story, Dr. Shawn. Like, it's not that I had all of these great opportunities to travel because I'm so much better than the rest of the Gracie Barra teachers. Like, man, there are some like guys out there that they're legends. They changed the martial arts world. And a lot of this, there are guys that today they teach some of the best UFC fighters in the world. They teach the military. They teach the special forces. I did some of that for a while myself. I taught some military, some special forces. But there are guys out there, they're like the best you can possibly imagine. And my master has within his own family some of his nephews. They grew up with me like my own brothers. You met Professor Halls. It's like, guy's 6'4", solid. Yeah. His brother Igor, it's 190, solid. Some of other, Professor Flavio Almeida, the guy is a mutant. He's super strong and healthy. Yeah. So for these guys to go in a country that was never exposed to jiu-jitsu and convince people that jiu-jitsu was an effective system, it was hard to believe. Yeah. If you never understood what was going on over there, you would just see a super athletic, healthy, strong guy overcoming 30 guys in one night.
Wouldn't be convincing at all.
So it wouldn't be convincing. Mm-hmm. Unless you would understand that they're not using their athleticism or strength, but their skill. Technique, yeah. Because they're skill beyond measure. But instead, he decided to send the small, skinny guy, which was me. It was like about 5'6", 5'7", 140 pounds, 135. And I was young, hungry.
Just like Helio and his brother, just send the small guy, show the technique.
Exactly.
And let it stand for itself.
Yeah. And I heard that from Master Carlos' very mouth. And say, man, if I send Rolezinho, they're not going to believe. I send Roleta, these guys are big and strong. I got to send you.
Well, what people also probably don't know, and correct me if I'm wrong, Royce Gracie, who was in the UFC, he wasn't even the dominant family member.
Oh, no.
It was Rickson Gracie, right? Probably.
Yeah,
and he was just crushing people over in Japan and in these other divisions. So they calculated their move to not put their strongest guy in there, to put Royce, who was thin and looked a little bit more frail than everybody else, purposefully to show, just as they'd done for you, to show that it was a technique that the small guy, right, can defeat anybody bigger because technique would outstand it, right?
Yeah, at that time, Rickson was the most prepared fighter in the family. Mm-hmm. He had the perfect blend between strength, size, and flexibility. Some of the Gracies are strong, some of them are flexible, some of them are big, but he was just like the epitome of like what a fighter should be, and obviously extremely skilled. So their politics involved with Rickson not coming into the UFC as well. But I would say one of the reasons that he didn't come to the UFC was because he was like, he wouldn't be so convincing.
Again, same principle, right?
Yeah, but there are other reasons too. Like at the time, Rorion, his older brother, didn't want him to shine as much because he was more of a free soul, and Royce was younger and
more
under Rorion's umbrella, while Rickson wasn't.
Right.
Their lineage of jiu-jitsu, it's not 100% like ours. Okay. I mean, the family was divided in two segments: the sons of Carlos and the sons of Helio. The sons of Helio, they took more obviously of the style of their father, and the sons of Carlos took more of the style of Carlos. Helio had a more of a tricky jiu-jitsu. You know, I will defend and survive until you get out, and then I'll catch you. While Carlos had a more proactive approach. I want to find quickest way to submit you and to finish this match. So I think we inherited that a little bit from Carlos. But at the end of the day, it's all the same art with different concepts.
And so you were asked to take...
I mean, same concept, same art, but with a different mindset.
Yeah. And then you were asked to take that mindset more globally yourself, right? That was the mission that they asked you to undertake, right?
Yeah, Master Carlos, he's a visionary. I think like each Gracie they came to this world to bless the martial arts community in a different way. And the way that my teacher, and he's not only, I have the title of Jiu-Jitsu professor because I'm an active teaching black belt. And after the 7th degree as a black belt, which take obviously several years of being an active teacher, you become a master. And he's a master today. And that's why I call him Master Carlos. That's his title. So Master Carlos was always a visionary. Like every Gracie, they borrow something special if you stop to think about it. Like Helio revolutionized, Carlos revolutionized, Carson revolutionized, Horse Gracie afterwards, Rickson. Obviously, Royce was like the guy who opened the Pandora box.
Yeah.
And then Master Carlos with his vision, to expand jiu-jitsu and to touch everyone around the world with this amazing art, because he believed the world, just like his father himself, could be a much better place if everyone would learn jiu-jitsu. And I'm 100% confident that that's still the case. So he found the International Federation, and he needed to popularize jiu-jitsu around the world. And he started to send his emissaries around the world to spread the gospel of a non-violence martial arts approach, of a healthy life, of a healthy diet, of a cultivation of a health style, and a very interesting way to live life, to face the world, and to find happiness.
And so that's why you disappear every once in a while overseas, because these are schools that you basically founded or opened up and brought to fruition, right?
Yeah. Today I have like directly or indirectly under me about maybe 3,000-4,000 students. Right. In different Gracie Barra school. I found over 10 Gracie Barra schools in different parts of the world. So it's important because these guys, they have such a precious lineage, which traces right back to the source, to Maeda, to Master Carlos Gracie, Great Grandmaster Carlos Gracie Sr., and to Master Carlos himself. If you think, they're the only, since Maeda, they're the only fourth fifth generation. I mean, second generation below Master Carlos. So for me, it's really important to keep them inspired, to keep them to keep them growing, to keep supporting the growth of their schools, to keep grading these guys, you know, in Master Carlos's name. And I don't want to ever like these guys to feel that I'm not there for them. Like, you know yourself, because you've been with us for a while. Our students, eventually they become our family, you know, and that's the way I feel about these guys that spent years with me, you know, and we shared a lot of adventures, struggles, and moments of joy together. So from time to time, I do a tour in Europe, a tour in Asia, and I visit my schools in Mexico too. I have like not my schools, I don't own the schools, but my students' schools. Right. And we have a lot of fun. And every trip, it's super busy, and you know, but it's always rewarding in terms of seeing these people achieving their full potential and dreams through jiu-jitsu.
You know, one of the things that I don't think people know, and I think it's probably important that they know, is that, I mean, I've been with you for about 4 years now, since I was with you when the sign went up. I remember walking in when the crane was putting the sign on the building, and I thought, oh, this is on my bucket list. I have to walk in now. And I walk in and I shake your hand, and I thought, and I remember you said, so how can I help you? And I said, I think I'm supposed to be here. And you said, I still remember what you said. You said, yes, you are. And so that was the beginning for me. But what I didn't realize, and I don't think certainly people who practice this realize, is that and there's no punching, there's no kicking. This is one of the few, if not the only martial art where when we spar, you can go 100%. And in 5 minutes, you've had a workout. And 3-5, like today, 4 or 5 minute sessions, and that's the hardest 20 minutes I've done in a long time in any workout. And nobody's getting hurt because you're under control. You're rolling with someone who, as you said, is like family. We call each other brothers and sisters. And I don't think that's in any other martial arts schools where you can, I'm speaking from ignorance because I don't know for sure. But I don't think there's the same kind of bond that occurs when you are interfaced with somebody going 100%, trying to choke each other, trying to submit a joint, trying to get the other person to tap out, but you have this trust that they're not going to hurt you when you tap. And it's just very interesting to me that when I talk to people, they have no idea about this. Is this something that's a common question that you get a lot? Is it and why don't people know more about this? I mean, this just seems like a big void in the understanding of martial arts.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, for outsiders, Dr. Shawn, and I will tell you by experience, sometimes we even sound too passionate about this, too cultish. I mean, like, what is this that these people, they talk about day and night non-stop? Yeah. What is this that moves hearts, and they, you know, they are always on the mats and they get sweat and they grapple with each other. What is this?
And lying in bed, things going through your head, the things that you learned today, the little technique that, you know, Professor Jerry showed me last Friday has still been circling my head, or something that you...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's like this. Imagine if one day you wake up with superpowers that you never thought you're capable of doing. Imagine if one day you wake up and you can fly through this window, and you can levitate, and you can lift your car, and you can walk through walls, and you can have X-ray vision. Imagine if you would have these superpowers. This would be, in fact, mind-blowing for any of us. Right. It would be insane. Jiu-Jitsu gives you, in a way, superpowers, because allows you to do things with your body that you never thought you're capable of. And the sense of well-being and confidence you get from that, it's overwhelming.
It is. It really is.
So besides that, you find a warm, welcoming, friendly community that I think it's like the response for the social awkwardness of the modern world. Because in the past, we had no cell phones, we had no internet, so we are social animals, and we are more approachable and more sociable 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, even more. But nowadays, we're engulfed in technology, and we many times don't have time to form strong bonds and relationships. So it's, in a way, it's decaying for our society to not have the ability to socialize, because this is who we are as beings. So when you come for a workout or to learn how to defend yourself from in a violent city like Chicago can be, and next thing you know, you'll find that you're making friends that you didn't have time, or you never had the opportunity to have before, and you when you become part of this community, you become special. You become a praised individual there, because you're a very important cell for that body. The school, it's not me, man. I'm 100% confident, Dr. Shawn, if today I die, the school will thrive the same way, because right now the school is an organic body. And each one of these individuals, they're a very important part of this organic body. So you find that in Jiu-Jitsu, and this is what is lacking in our society today. Besides that, you have superpowers. Who wouldn't take that?
Yeah. The one of the other things, and there's no secret here that a lot of us in this profession, and in this sport, or this art, if you will, and that's probably the best wording of it, is art, is that Joe Rogan is famous in this neck of the woods, and he likes to call this high-level problem solving.
100%.
Yeah, other people like to call it human chess, but you're really saying the same thing, whether you say high-level problem solving, as he says in the UFC, with dire consequences, right? Because there's, either, you take it to the extreme of either submitting someone or knocking them out, but that doesn't go that far with what we do here, unless you're competing, of course. But people don't know this. They don't understand it. It shocks me that with as much of the internet and social media that's out there, there is still a lot of people that are very isolated from this. And it's shocking to me because some of the most fascinating students at the school are, we've got doctors, we've got surgeons in there, we've got police officers, we've got mothers and fathers and high school kids. I mean, talk about this. You were mentioning this social diversity, and it opens up this interesting interplay between people who are picking up this game of high-level problem solving, but they're coming in with these different backgrounds. It just fascinates me. Every time I'm in there, I ask people what they do, and it's just interesting to see that. You must hear people talk about that all the time.
Yeah. I think spiritually, we human beings, we are very special. I don't know if we are the only intelligent life form in the universe. I think that's a little bit of... I don't want to presume that we are the only intelligent life form in the universe, but we are very special. And we are way more special than we think we are. So Jiu-Jitsu helps you to find that, to discover who you are. Like there is this like a famous quote of my teacher that it's an absolute truth. When you wear your uniform, which we call gi, our gi or our kimono,
Mm-hmm.
and you step on the mats, you undress your soul and you show who you are. Because out there are no fake smiles.
Yeah.
There are no secrets. You reveal your true personality and you start understanding who you are. And this is liberating. So when you're in an environment that I'm 100% giving and honest towards the person next to me, we eliminate violence immediately. We eliminate enviness. We eliminate gossip. We eliminate insecurity. We eliminate hatred. And when the guy that cleans the restrooms and flips the burgers or breaks the concrete has the ability to bring a CEO to a submission or a doctor, and they grow and they build a strong relationship from learning from that, both of them, because when you lose in Jiu-Jitsu, it's not a loss. In reality, is a learning and growth opportunity. You make the world better because we tend to appreciate titles and prerogatives, and when you eliminate that, and everyone is equal, and
Mm-hmm.
race no longer matters, color no longer matters, gender definitely won't matter because we
Mm-hmm.
have some ace ladies on our mats.
Absolutely.
And they're so inspiring and empowered and amazing. You definitely make the world better, and it's one of the very intriguing and captivating aspects of Jiu-Jitsu. I'm 100% against bullies learning martial arts. I mean, bullies learning how to fight. Bullying learns martial arts from the philosophical aspect. I'm 100% on page with, because when a bully, he walks to a proper martial arts school, especially in Jiu-Jitsu, and I'll explain you why. They understand that they are not the biggest fish in the tank. They start learning that there are others out there that can do to him what they do to people before them. So imagine this guy. He's been a bully his whole life or his whole childhood, and he or she walks in that school, and then he thinks he's confident, or he likes to think he's confident, and here he comes, this little girl wearing a pink gi, and puts him in a choke, and he has to submit. Otherwise, he will go for a nap. And this will happen again and again and again. That's overwhelming, and that's a great moment of realization to this person. It's a lesson of humility, and it's awakening. But in the same token, that kid or that person who suffered a physical trauma comes and gets exposed to this overwhelming power and sense of confidence that you get when you learn these skills. And that's mind-blowing and life-changing, because that person who thought it was never possible to withstand a challenge in life starts discovering, hey, I am strong beyond I ever imagined. I'm capable. So it's a divine tool, an educational tool for mankind, because it can make aggressive people more calm, and it can make introspective and insecure people confident. If you go to a real jiu-jitsu school, you can experience these benefits. So I think like the world needs more jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it interesting that you take someone who's aggressive like a bully, and all of a sudden you give them this skill, and all of a sudden it's like the great equalizer. They realize all of a sudden, I'm just as vulnerable as everybody else. My ego was what got ahead of me.
Exactly.
And it's an interesting concept that, and you hear this a lot from the great practitioners, and I've heard you say it many times, that when you know how to fight, you no longer need to fight. And that's kind of profound, that, the further you get into this skill and this art, you realize that you no longer need to prove anything. Whereas, bullies feel like they need to prove something. But, it's interesting to me that learning this technique makes people feel like they probably need to, display that aggressiveness less. You probably see this all the time. You see probably people come in who are all full of testosterone and piss and vinegar, and they've got something to prove, and before you know it, they're just another person on the mat, probably far down on the totem pole, like I once felt, and at times, many times still do, that it humbles you. It's a great humbling tool. I mean, there's just so much to learn from this, and it seems like it's infinite.
It is.
And, I've heard this before, that you will never master this art, whereas there are many martial arts that you probably could, and this one you won't. There is something in my profession that's very interesting, and it's a very, very new concept. And it kind of goes like this, that when we look at professional athletes, they have now shown that early diversification in a child playing baseball, soccer, swimming, football, jiu-jitsu, ends up developing a more powerful, more skilled, more well-rounded athlete than early specification. But it's interesting that in our age, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, in our time, we have people that take their kids to 6 soccer practices a week, or the kid is just playing tennis. They're on the tennis team, they're on the tennis club, and then we have private tennis lessons. There's no more of this diversification, and we're seeing this big gap in the world now, because we've got, and I hate the term, but the soccer moms, we've got the football dads, and the kids are just, they've got a private football coach, they've got a private guy that they go to for speed training over at the gym, and they're just doing this single solitary sport, thinking that that's going to get them to the NFL, to the NBA, to the world tennis, table. And it's been proven now that if you diversify your child early on, they will develop skills and take all of the little pieces from all these little things. Here's the dilemma I have, and I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear what you have to say. Jiu-jitsu, you can start that early on. And it seems to balk against that whole principle, because you could do jiu-jitsu. Here's my thought, and then I want to hear what you have to say. Jiu-jitsu incorporates all of it: flexibility, speed, strength, thinking, nonverbal communication. It seems to cover the whole gamut of all of these other sports. And I think maybe that's why you could take someone, put them in jiu-jitsu, and they will actually
play
any sport.
You just like, I was disagreeing with you, Dr. Shawn, because I believe like diversity of physical stimulations, it's really good for kids. I mean, I I kind of get it, what some parents out there that are doing with their kids, trying to turn them into professional athletes. Because I'll 10 times do that to a kid of mine before leaving the kid neglected or not practicing sports or, having bad habits. But I think that's extremely stressful to a kid to be imposed in a grueling schedule, training schedule. And many times I see that as frustration of the parents transferred to the kids. But like I said, I think that's 10 times better than not doing sports at all. However, Jiu-Jitsu capitalizes everything you need in terms of physical and mental stimulation. And why is that? You have the standing up element, so you need to have good base, good core, good balance. So one day you're going to be throwing only. And then you have the ground element, where you're going to have to be sometimes flexible, sometimes strong, sometimes stiff, sometimes relaxed, sometimes extremely slow, sometimes fast. And because it's a formless martial arts, you get exposed to all kinds of physical stimulations. So it's not uncommon that you see a good jiu-jitsu practitioner playing good in any other sports. And this, like, we have a countless experience examples of that. Like one of my students in England, Professor Salvatore Pace, you met him. He has trained some of the best rugby players in the UK and some of the best in the world, and he made them better than they were before. They trained less rugby and started training jiu-jitsu, and all of a sudden they became better rugby players. And the same happened to me. I achieved the professional surfing level in Brazil, and I work hard for that. It's one of my passions. All my students and close friends, they know surfing is something that I live for. I love it. The lifestyle, it blends so well with jiu-jitsu. But when I start doing more jiu-jitsu and less surfing, and all of a sudden my surfing skills, they became so much better. And I was actually not surfing so much. I was doing jiu-jitsu. It got to a point when I was in juniors high, in high school, that I was competing in jiu-jitsu and surfing on the same weekends. I was running from a competition to another, and I was doing both, and I was doing well in both. Jiu-jitsu helped me so much in surfing that it was overwhelming. So I agree with you. I think it's, from the sport standpoint of view, it's phenomenal for kids. But I think it's a way more than that, because it's such an educational tool, a mental tool as well, to teach the kids discipline, patience, respect. I mean, where else you can get your kid to be incorporated in a community where it's based of respect, hierarchy, discipline, brotherhood? So I can see the benefits on our kids. Dr. Shawn, you know that. We have kids that they suffer of autism. We have kids with some of the kids, they have physical illness in our school. Some of them, they have mental illness. And we've been amusing a lot of doctors out there that they asking their parents, what happened to your child? What did you do?
Yeah, we know a couple of them that, so, friends of mine that I've sent to the school. Yeah, exactly.
So what did you do to your kid?
Yeah.
What changed all of a sudden? And it's not me as a professor, but I would say the Gracie Barra schools, they incorporated a specific training method that can reach out to all kinds of people, and that became the motto of the organization, Jiu-Jitsu for everyone, and everyone can benefit from it. Gracie Barra Downers Grove, the school where I teach, is the clear example of that today.
Yeah, the and things that I think the parents that aren't listening might even not get is that I don't think the parents realize that that child is going to learn how to. I mean, how many children do not integrate and communicate well with adults at this school? Eventually, that child is going to have to integrate into a more advanced class where you have adults that are starting out. Now you've got a young kid who's got more skill than an adult coming in. You're going to have to interact, and these children, you don't have a choice. And we see these kids grow in this school. And I'm not here just to blow up our school, but I see it. I mean, I've sent some clients in with kids, and I've seen these kids change. I talk with them in the lobby, and the kid has changed. This young child is interfacing, looking me in the eye, having a conversation with me. They didn't do that 6 months ago. But there are other things. I mean, we didn't talk about the aspects of aerobic and anaerobic training. This is a sport that second to second, you are shifting from aerobic to anaerobic. I can't breathe. Now I'm breathing. We're pausing. We're paying attention. There's these moments in this sport where if you're an observer that doesn't know what's going on, you just think there's two people lying on top of each other having a little conversation. Whereas there's strategy going on there. There's patience. There's waiting. There's so much that I've learned from this that at any second you can be very vulnerable. And so you need to think carefully about your next move. And I mean, there's just so many aspects. There's even the concept that, and this is something, I have conversations with my patients. You know this. I am always trying to bring them in I want them to understand what we're doing at the school. And I said, when's the last time you got up and down off the floor 10 times? When's the last time you did a forward roll, a backwards roll, rolled until you were dizzy? I mean, these are things we did as kids, and development, early childhood development. And now we're forcing this into a sport and an art. And you see these young adults that are coming in, children, and even older adults that come in. I remember my first day in the advanced class, and we were doing the advanced rolls. I was seeing stars. You know, I looked like a drunk man at the end of the mat there because I didn't have my vestibular system working. And I thought, this really, and I know it sounds like we're pumping this up, but it's just, people need to know about this. And there's a lot of people out there that don't. Tumbling, that you did as a kid, you take it for granted. When's the last time? Most of our listeners are probably going to say, I can't remember the last time I tumbled. Let alone, can you get off the floor without using your hands? Just last year, there was this article that was written about predicting your overall mortality. Can you get up off the floor and then sit back down on the floor without using your hands? I mean, do you have the dexterity, the coordination, the strength? This art just seems to incorporate so many aspects of it. And I guess I'm just baffled why this isn't more widely known. Do you have any? I mean, I know you're on that mission. That's part of who you are and the mission that you're partaking. But how do we spread this word more? I mean, we're doing the right things. That's why we're here today talking. But
I think there are great professors out there within and without the Gracie Barra organization. But I think the Gracie Barra organization is doing a really good job with that, Dr. Shawn, because the vision of my teacher's father was that one day every city in the world would have a jiu-jitsu school. And from a couple schools 15 years, 20 years ago in Brazil, right now we have 650 schools and growing. So I think more and more the community is aware that of the self-defense, mental and social benefits of jiu-jitsu, and it's growing. Today, like back in the day when we used to compete in Brazil, we used to compete once a month or once every other month. Nowadays, there is one important tournament every weekend somewhere around the world under the International Brazilian Jiu Jitsu Federation. So it's not only the fastest growing martial art in the world, but I would say it's the fastest growing sport in the world. I think we're still like crawling in the Midwest. Jiu-Jitsu is not so developed, and that's why our mission over here is so important. But we are on the right path. There are great Gracie Barra leaders popping up all over the Midwest, and great Jiu-Jitsu teachers in general too. But there are the bad too. There is the good and the bad. But I would say a lot of our serious and responsible people over there, that they really want to serve the community and share with people this magical tool, this amazing thing. And like you say, a lot of people they need to know what they're capable of, and we go back to the superpower thing. We're capable way more than we think. We're way more powerful than we can possibly imagine.
Well, and it's interesting on that thought that a lot of people, they come into the school. You see that. I was the same way, so I know it and I recognize it when I see it in a new student. I mean, I've been with you for 4 years now. It's hard to believe. I get in maybe once, maybe twice a week. At the beginning, it was 4 or 5. And I realized the things that I've been most successful in my life with are the things that I treat like a marathon. I pace myself. And most of the things in my life, I will outbeat anybody, or I have outbeat most people, because I will stick with it longer than they will. And we see a lot of students that come in and they burn out early. What advice would you give to them? Because they see the superpower and they're hungry, they want it, and they see there's this vision out there and they want to grab on it. And this is a lifelong journey. What would you tell students? Because there's people all over the world listening to this right now in over 90 countries. What would your advice be to them about making this longevity and last without burning out?
Look back on the creator of Jiu-Jitsu. Look back in the Far East, where people they plan ahead 50 years. They plan ahead for 1 or 2 generations. In the West, especially nowadays, we're immediatists. We want now.
Yes, social media. Instant gratification, right?
Yeah, instant gratification. That's the word. And I mean, a lot of people come with that hunger, with that desire to learn everything at once, but it does not happen like that. So my advice is plan ahead. Don't use Jiu-Jitsu as a sport. For God's sake, Jiu-Jitsu is not a sport. Jiu-Jitsu, it's a lifestyle within a martial art that has a sport aspect of it. But it's not a sport in any shape or form. So it's not like wrestling, where you're going to start to wrestle hard in middle school and you're going to peak in college, but after college, most of the wrestlers, they're crippled for life and they can't wrestle no more. It's not like that. Our plan is not like this. Our plan is to be doing that at the age of 90 with our children and grandchildren. So you have to pace yourself. Like you said, it's a marathon. But the way to not burn out is to enjoy the journey. And this is not hard. It's the practice of Jiu-Jitsu is enjoyable. The community of Jiu-Jitsu is enjoyable. The bonds you form is enjoyable. The doors you open, the network, it's enjoyable. So it's enjoying the ride. That's the secret, to never burn out.
You see it a lot. I mean, when we're in the school, you see all the white belts on the one end, and you see the higher end belts on the other, and there's not quite as many people there. They're the dedicated ones, but quite often, I don't think that they're the most talented ones, but they have endured They have looked at this as a long-term path, like you say. It's a lifestyle. It's for everybody, and it should be a way of life, not only at the school. And, I wrote that article a couple weeks ago, it being about a black belt in life. It doesn't matter what belt you are in the school. That just shows you where your hierarchy is in the school. But it's about taking jiu-jitsu outside of the school and realizing that you also have a belt in life and you need to represent yourself there too. And so that's why I like that analogy that this is a way of life. It's a way of living. It's more of a philosophy to guide you as opposed to a school to go for a workout or something like that, right?
Yeah, it's not a workout place, definitely.
No.
I tend to say to my students that most of them, they're over there for 3 hours a week. They do 3 classes a week, 2 classes. What do they do with the rest of their time? If they transfer to their lives the skills they learn on the mats, they're doing jiu-jitsu. If not, they're not. So it's like it's a way to see life. It's a way to interact with the world.
It's interesting. Well, do you have anything else to share with the listeners? I think I've got a list of other things that I'd like to talk about, but I think we'll keep the listeners on edge for part 2.
Awesome.
Somewhere down the road.
Yeah, I have this month in particular, one of the blessings that I found in Gracie Barra in Jiu Jitsu, and that's what probably what kept me in more than anything, was the ability to make friends and the ability to meet people for what they truly are, the original soul, the source. No makeups, no fine suits, no prerogatives, no rich kid or poor kid, black, white, Jew, Muslim, Christian, atheist, who you are in essence. And one of these great friendships I formed over there when I was a kid was with Professor Philip Jerry. And we have him in our school for this whole month, teaching and sharing the mats with me. And we've been friends for over 20 years. And we never thought Jiu-Jitsu would take us this far. We love it. We believe the teachings of Master Carlos that this one day would be the biggest sport and the biggest thing in the world. But we're doing because we're forming friendships, and we're witnessing the virtues and value of man over there every day. And today he's here spending a whole month with me teaching in our school. It's an unbelievable experience. So I would propose, before he flies back home, let's bring him on the podcast so we can tell some of the crazy stories as well that we experienced together in Brazil.
I think I would love that.
We grew up in a country with the liberty to be who we want to be, with no preconceptions, and expressing ourselves to the fullest to any challenge that would come up to us. And it would be very interesting to bring him on board to tell the listeners a little bit about our journey together and about our experiencing growing up on the most important martial arts school ever in history, which I believe.
Well, we're lucky to have him tomorrow in the school for a special seminar.
Yeah.
And it's fun. It's exciting for me to hear you talk about your relationship with him, because I have this ulterior motive with all of my friends all over social media that my ideal scenario would be to have all my friends join me at the school several times a week so I could see them and we could do something that is perfect. A workout, some learning, something difficult, something challenging, something a little intimidating and scary at times, embracing the Brazilian lifestyle of the way of eating and looking at life, and things are a little slower, a little bit more mellow, a little bit more maybe complete and whole, as opposed to the crazy pace here in America it's killing all of us because we're just letting it kind of gnaw away at us at the speed that we work at, and it's not healthy. I remind myself all the time to slow down.
I was hearing this podcast the other day that a 10-year-old child today receives more information daily than the Roman emperor on the peak of the Roman Empire had for his entire term over there. We cannot live like that. This is not who we are, and you need that mental hygiene. Dr. Shawn, I never take an important decision in my life before a hard jiu-jitsu practice, because after that I find this inner peace and clarity that I can construct thoughts in a much more intelligent way. So even before coming here, I had a practice. Not hard, but I had a nice practice because I knew that would help me to express myself in a better way. It gives me more clarity and peace to construct thoughts. So
well, imagine the clarity one would have if they just survived a battle where someone was trying to put them away. Not that that's what jiu-jitsu is, but it's this controlled. Like we've talked about this whole session, it's two people agreeing upon an engagement to experience something that could be dangerous, but understanding that you will each draw the limits to where the vulnerabilities are and respect them as a person and those vulnerabilities. How could you not have clarity after something like that, where you've worked hard, you've tried not to allow yourself to become choked or unconscious or submitted, and you've done this in a willing, engaging behavior with somebody who is trying to do that to you? Everything after that has got to be a little bit more calm with some clarity, right? Yeah. That's the amazing thing. And I just, like I said, I wish more of my friends would join me there. And you see me on Facebook and all these. I'm daring people, please join me. They're coming slowly, but let's hope it grows.
Yeah, in any shape or form, you're trying to generate more business to yourself, because I know you're too busy with clients.
Well, but, I also know it would drive me out of my work and over to the school more if I knew more of my friends were there. I mean, my friend Matt is now at the school, and I won't miss a Friday class now because it's the only time I get to see him.
Yeah.
And so if I can get my friends over there, and we all know that that's the only time of the week we're going to see each other, I think that's huge.
Yeah, but I think something it's important to enlighten people about is jiu-jitsu is not UFC, guys. Mm-hmm. It's not the UFC. The UFC was a great tool to promote jiu-jitsu. Today, a UFC fighter cannot survive in a cage fight without the jiu-jitsu skills to defend him or herself. The best kickboxers, wrestlers in the world, they can't do it without jiu-jitsu. So they learn jiu-jitsu nowadays as a profession, but jiu-jitsu is not the UFC. The culture of UFC, it's not the culture of jiu-jitsu. I mean, jiu-jitsu is one of the many things a UFC fighter, if not the most important thing a UFC fighter must learn. But that is a big difference between the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, the philosophy of jiu-jitsu, the self-defense system of jiu-jitsu, and what it's shown on TV and UFC.
Yeah, I think that for the listeners who are unfamiliar with this, you need to, I guess, do some homework, or better yet, put on a gi, come into the school, and realize that this is not, like you said, the UFC. No. This is an art form. This is a way of life. This is a skill. This is a learning process. This is difficult. This is not easy stuff. But I mean, and you listen to podcasts like I do. the people in the know say that children should do something difficult and hard because that's where they grow. You know, we are in this, everybody gets a participation trophy world now. That's not the real life. And so when you go into the Jiu-Jitsu Academy and you spar with somebody, someone is going to come out more victorious than the other person. I mean, it's humbling when you get tapped. And it's humbling, I think, for a different reason when you are the person who was victorious. You learn mercy, you learn compassion, you can teach that person. I mean, we do this all the time. What did you just do? I didn't even see that coming. How did you get me into that position? And you want to know. And so all of a sudden you're attacking each other and you're and that's not the right word. You're engaging each other. And then all of a sudden it's over and you're like two friends talking about what just happened there and teach me, show me. That's what I wish more people knew. That's, to me, that's one of the more valuable things here. And then you're around the mats and you're like, you know, this is where you guys should have done this. And it's just, it's an amazing thing. And that's why I wanted to have this interview with you. And I think that, you know, I think we need to have a part 2 here and just kind of whet people's appetite for yeah.
So a lot to talk about.
Yes.
On the part 2.
And we will definitely get Professor Jerry on here, that's for sure.
We'll have some very interesting stories of our adventures in Brazil and around the world. You know, how Jiu-Jitsu got us out of trouble so many times. You know, and we survived to some big challenges. So we can share that with everyone.
So, well, you have that to look forward to, listeners. And so how do people find you? How do they find your school? Where are you located? How would you like them to find you and know about Gracie Barra Downers Grove?
It's very easy. We're located in the heart of Downers Grove, right on Ogden Avenue, west of Cass, east of Fairview Avenue,
Illinois.
In Downers Grove, Illinois. Like it's like
the heartland of the Midwest.
Yeah, like right outside Chicago. And they can find the school at gbdownersgrove.com. GB, standing for Gracie Barra, downersgrove.com. Our phone number there is 630-964-1414. And on our website, they can email us and if the person asks to talk to me, just leave a phone number or email contact. I'll be happy to answer any questions or to help anyone interested about learning about Jiu-Jitsu and the Gracie Barra.
And they're welcome to come by the school and watch or partake in an intro class, right?
Absolutely. We have the commitment in all Gracie Barra schools around the world to offer one free lesson for anyone who wants to try the art of Jiu-Jitsu. That person will have a compromise-free, full experience of how Jiu-Jitsu is. We're gonna dress the person with our official uniform. We're gonna tie the belt, and we're gonna walk the person on baby steps on some of the most important self-defense skills and awareness. And it's a very positive, friendly experience.
And they can find you on Twitter as well, right?
Yeah,
Gracie Barra on Twitter as well.
Yeah, I don't have a personal Twitter. I have a personal Instagram account, Carlos Lemos Jr. Same on Facebook, but the school has a Twitter. So
okay, good. Well, I look forward to part 2. This has been a great interview, and I hope you folks listen to this and enjoy it. And certainly, if you did, and it's something that you want to look into, you can reach out to me. You can find me at ShawnAllen.net, drallen.co, or thegateguys.com. Any of those places you can locate me, and I will certainly put you in contact with Professor Carlos here. And come and check out our school or your local Gracie Barra school. Just go and watch. Talk to the professor. Talk to the students. Go and watch a couple classes. You don't even have to participate. Some people have that little bit of social anxiety and uncertainty. So just stick one toe in the pool and just get used to it and just go and see what it's like. These places are, and you always said this at the beginning. I remember you saying, leave your testosterone and your ego at the door. Come in here with an open mind and learn. And and be part of our family. And how welcoming is that? It's perfect. So Professor Carlos Lemos Jr., thank you for joining us. And for you folks that don't know, we are sitting here with his father. We are sitting here with a couple friends and Professor Jerry here. So we had a nice evening, and we will get you on with Professor Carlos and Professor Jerry here in the near future.
Awesome. Thank you.